So, up first is Shawn Catherwood, and his full biography is in the program. So, I'm just going to highlight a few things. He is a fifth generation farmer from Ceylon, Saskatchewan, which they have been farming since 1905. So, obviously, one of the first to establish that type of farm in that part of Saskatchewan. He has extensive experience working with his own farm, but also his experience with PepsiCo and his company Spurline Crop Solutions. So over to you, Shawn.
Right on. Thanks, Susie. Since we only have so much time, I think I'll just dive right into things here. So she already introduced me pretty well, but my name is Shawn Catherwood. I am a fifth generation farmer. That's always how I introduce myself first. Ceylon is located about 80 miles south of Regina. So to give you some context, which will be important for this presentation, fairly dry area. I think our long-term average rainfall is about 8-9 inches, something like that. However, we usually don't actually get that. It's either way more or way less, pretty sporadic like that. And in the last 4 to 5 years, we haven't seen anywhere near that 8 inches. So we've definitely been in a bit of a dry spell, which is also important because it's been in that time period where I myself and on our own farm, we've really started to make this transition from conventional minded framework to more of a regenerative. And the other hat I wear is as a consultant for agronomic consultant, and also do a lot of research through my other business, Spurline Crop Solutions, where we do a lot of research testing out the practicalities of a lot of these best practices like cover cropping, intercropping, different fertility management practices, and livestock integration and all that kind of fun stuff. And another thing we do is some on-farm program consulting work as well, to help some of our clients and customers navigate through this world of farm sustainability incentive programs that exist. So, diving into the next slide. The name of my presentation is these two questions. Who do you farm for, and why do you farm for them? So that might seem like a bit of a weird question to ponder at first, but I want you guys in the audience to really think about this, especially the ones that do farm, and see if you can answer this question throughout the rest of my presentation. And I will come back to this, but these two questions are really important for me personally, and it really helped make me wake up to what's going on in the industry and in our soils and just in the world in general. When you start asking myself, who do you farm for? And when you start adopting some of these best management practices, if you just dive into it head first with no real plan or even belief in what you're doing, and you just start doing things because either your neighbors are doing it, the salesman told you to do it, the agronomist you've hired is telling you to do it, any other kind of pressure, whatever it may be. If that's the route you're going, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. And I still encourage everyone to start adapting these practices, but you really have to believe deep down yourself that this is the right route to go. And so it's all about shifting that mindset before you can shift those management practices. So that's a big piece of what I want to talk about today, is more the philosophical reasons why I make the decisions I make on my farm. And then we'll slowly get into some of the practices that we have adopted under this new mindset. So this picture I have here is a canary seed field of ours from last year. And if you were to ask any farmer or agronomist or whatever, what do they thought of this crop at this point? And I think the answer would all be, looks really good. It's nice and even, really good emergence. Don't see any obvious macronutrient deficiencies going on there. Don't see any disease. Don't see any weeds. Looks really awesome. And generally, I would agree with that. But now, since I've shifted my mind more to working with nature and against, all I see in this picture is all the problems in it. I see no diversity. I see a whole bunch of plants, the exact same stage, the same species, competing against each other for the same nutrients, the same water, all at the same time. And it's a very competitive type framework. And also, if you were to zoom out from this picture, the natural landscape around it, which we do have some prairie around us, looks a lot different than what you see in this field. And I personally see that as an issue. So now moving on to the next slide. It's all about, where in our journey, where we came from to where we are now. And that's part of the story I want to tell you. So I was trained as a conventional agronomist. I went to the University of Saskatchewan. I got my agronomy degree. I was trained for this high cost max production model that we typically see across grain farms in the Western Canadian prairies now. And at the end of the day, it's all about monocultures and literally killing everything. I know that sounds aggressive, but it really is true when you think about it. What we're trying to do with conventional agronomy is to get everything out of our way so we have everything in our control and are able to sow our seeds into this landscape that's got nothing, so that from that point on we can try our best to control every single factor. We're obsessed with eliminating everything out and really trying to control so that we can reach the highest potential yield possible. And that's what I was trained in, and that's something I've had to fight myself out of as I've made this transition. And as I go through the rest of the story, you'll see how different observations have led me to making a huge shift in mindset. So, next slide goes over what I call prescriptive agronomy. Again, what I was trained in, and what a lot of people are trained in still. I know we're making progress on this standpoint, but it is what it is at this point still. So what I mean by prescriptive agronomy is really X plus Y equals Z. That's how we try and look at everything. Really try and simplify the process of growing a plant. And I'll use one specific example. So say we're building our fertility plan for a cash crop. We do our soil sampling, we send it away to the lab, they do their extraction test, send the results back, we read what our parts per million or pounds per acre of our different micros and macros are. Now we then apply that to some sort of yield curve on any given crop that looks at the uptake and removal rates of a typical soil type. You add those two together or whatever, and then we have our end yield goal that we're trying to hit. So that's kind of our X plus Y equals Z. We're looking at it in a very simple manner. We're not purposely, but we're ignoring everything else around us that happen in nature. The laws of nature are very complex, and we try to almost eliminate that complexity, again, by trying to control everything from start to finish. It's simple, right? That's how we grow a big crop. And don't get me wrong, we've been very successful at growing very large crops in this model. But now I think as an industry, we're starting to wake up to the issues that come with this kind of model. So in this picture, we see a seed treatment on a wheat seed here. And I used to sell seed treatments, so again, I was quite immersed in this world. And that's just another example of prescriptive agronomy. We're coating the seed with chemicals to try and kill everything that's both on it and also around it in the soil when we place it in furrow. All the bacteria, all the fungi, not just the bad guys, but the good guys too. And again, it's that mindset of control and trying to eliminate all the factors that can essentially hurt our yield potential. Because everything we were thinking about was high yield, high yield, high yield, and that's all we cared about. So moving on to this next slide here, everything I've explained so far really is a competition mindset. So this is a picture from my own farm. Here I'm out at this time, pretty proud of myself. I've killed all the weeds. There's nothing growing in that barren landscape. I got all my fertilizer and everything in my grain cart back there, and I'm doing what's right, right? This is what everyone else does. This is the production model. I'm chasing after that big crop. Everything should work out perfect, right? That's kind of our mindset. But it's weird in a standpoint how we're throwing hundreds of dollars per acre into the ground like this through that machine before the plant even comes above ground. And we're just exposing ourselves as a farmer to all that risk, environmental risk, market risk, you name it, hoping and praying that it rains, the commodity markets stay strong, all that kind of stuff. So all these uncontrollable factors are really affecting our business in this kind of production model. So then I have this other box here, treating issues with solutions that create more issues. That sounds kind of like a jumbled mess of words, but what I mean by that is in this kind of framework, we're really competing against nature at all times, that competition mindset. So, okay, here's another example. We go and kill all the weeds on this field. And we've now treated an issue, the issue being the weed, and we've treated it with a herbicide. Now, over time, what have we done? We've created a new issue called herbicide resistance to chemicals, like kochia, for example, becoming resistant to all these different active ingredients. And now we've created a new issue by trying to provide solutions for an old issue. And then on it goes. You just keep trying to treat these symptoms and you're fighting against what nature's trying to do. Nature's trying to grow those weeds on that field because it doesn't like to be barren. It's just trying to heal itself. It's sending us clues all the time that it's hurting and what we're doing isn't working. But instead of trying to work with nature, we keep beating our head against the wall and trying to fight her, and we're never going to win that battle. This is a negative feedback loop that's going to be ongoing forever and ever. So moving on to the next slide. This is just some pictures of for my own farm this past year. It was really dry, so obviously a little bit exaggerated, but back to the journey on our own farm about since I started going to university, learning about this agronomic framework, and I would start pushing these practices on my dad even before I started farming. My dad was pretty old school. He adopted no-till pretty early on, so we weren't heavy tillage by any means, but he didn't throw a lot of fertilizer in. He was very low cost, and he was making a profit. He was getting by. He was happy. And then I came onto the scene, and I was all about pushing that envelope. Let's grow as much green as possible, just like everyone else. So then we started doing that. We started soil sampling. We started throwing a bunch of phos fertilizer in the system, more nitrogen, playing around with micros, everything, just high cost. And we started growing the biggest crops our farm has ever seen in the last 10 years. So we started riding that high for a while, and we're having a lot of fun and quite proud of ourselves. The fields look clean. They looked immaculate. We're doing a good job, right? Or at least it looks like we're doing a good job. Whereas in reality, in the background, we were making less and less money every single year. Now, of course, it's been dry the last handful of years. That does not help. And it really accelerates these issues that this production system really emulates. So, and I've noticed since we started this high input system the last couple of years, I'm a big soil guy. I like getting my hands in the soil, digging in the soil with shovels and just observing. And I've started to watch our soil go backwards to be in a condition that's actually worse than when it was when my dad was farming, as I would call old school. And we have this compaction layer like 3-4 inches down on all of our acres. And it's not just from the heavy equipment, it's also from just the use of our inputs, and we're just killing everything in the soil. And it's creating this compaction layer that's become this huge issue. So now moving on to the next slide, you couple that with the financial side of it, and this is a really cool graph that Statistics Canada has put together. And the blue graph is Canadian gross revenue, and then in comparison to the green, which is net revenue, dating all the way back to 1926. So this is almost 100 years of data, huge data set. And as we can see, we're certainly growing more and more grain, and the gross revenue is going up and up and up. However, the net revenue for the farmers is going down, down, down. And that just doesn't seem right to me. And I've experienced this on our own operation. Even though we're growing more, we're making less money. So where's all that money going? Well, it's not coming to the farm gate. Someone else is making a lot of money. So if that doesn't irk you as a farmer, I don't know what does. When you couple this with the soil and watching it literally degrade in front of my eyes, I started to wake up to what can be done. So moving on to the next slide here. What can we do about it? Farmers are really good at complaining about everything. I'm also in that boat. We complain about high prices of fertilizer and inputs, high prices of equipment, complain about Mother Nature. And what do we often do about it? Well, we look at each other, smirk a little bit, shrug our shoulders and say, oh, not much we can do about it. And I kind of laugh at that because I could not disagree more. There's actually a lot we can do about it. And it's all about taking back control. So moving on to the next slide, I asked this question again. Who do you farm for? And when I ask myself this question, my answer is I farm for myself. I farm for my family. I farm for my community. I farm for the legacy of our 5th generation farm. And I farm for the health and well-being of the land that we live on and around us. So now when you couple, okay, why do you farm for them? So for me personally, everyone's going to have a different answer for them. But I want to see my farm succeed for another 5 generations past me. And the route we were going on, I don't think we'd survive another 1 or 2. I don't know what would have got us first, financial crisis or soil degradation. Doesn't really matter either way. I saw the writing on the wall. So yeah, moving on to the next slide here. That was my aha moment. So then I was always kind of interested in these soil health principles, but never really took it seriously until my aha moment that I just went through. So our new mindset is cooperating with nature instead of competing with nature. So here I have the 5 soil health principles listed, which we've all seen many times before, I'm sure. And they almost seem oversimplified, but there's a reason for that, because they work. So The next slide goes back to this x plus y equals z. That's where we're coming from. And that was our prescriptive agronomy. Now, I threw this random picture of the carbon cycle globally in here. Just don't fixate on that too much. It's just to show nature is far from simple. It's super complex. Humans are never going to fully understand all the laws of nature and the dynamics that go on both above and below ground. But what we can do is observe how nature works and how nature has successfully built these very deep, fertile soils we farm on by themselves. So let's observe those principles, which are the 5 soil health principles, and apply that to our farm. So the next slide starts going through the 5 principles and some pictures from my operation and how we've implemented these. So soil armor for us is a really big one. Being in a drier climate and the natural ecosystem being that native prairie grassland, the soil is always covered. It is never bare. And if it is bare, Mother Nature tries to fill it up with plants. So we put a lot of pride and effort into having as much residue as possible. This is a picture from this fall before freeze up. You can see there's a nice soil cover there. Even if nothing's actively growing, which is a different principle, at least it's important we get some cover on the soil with residue. So we like to play around with our rotation and our crop mixes to make sure our carbon and nitrogen ratios are at an ultimate level that allows us to always have residue. So that's kind of one example of soil armor. And then moving on to the next principle is diversity. This one has been one I've played a lot with the last handful of years through cocktail mix cover crops, which you see in this picture. And I've had a lot of challenges trying to establish like shoulder season cover crops, for example. So we've really started leaning into a full season cover crop scenario where we pull a cash crop out of production, grow a really high diverse cover crop mix like this, which was 15 species, and kind of look at it from a forage standpoint to still earn some revenue off that and view it as both a soil health tool, but still its own version of a cash crop. Other diversity things that we've played around with is intercropping. Chickpeas and flax and mustard and peas are our 2 most common intercrops we do, and we've had a lot of success with. And I just want to say it's amazing how even the addition of a second species to add that diversity can make such a huge difference. How they complement each other really well, help with disease suppression, fertility, nutrient cycling, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, moving on to the next slide. Living root. This is just a picture of our winter cereal. This is just taken 2 days ago. It's starting to wake up as our snow melts. Something that's sometimes challenging to establish here, but very exciting to see how we can get that living root in the soil as long as possible. Next principle would be on the next slide, animal integration. Playing around with integrating livestock, grazing them on our cover crops through rotational means and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really trying to figure this one out for my grain farm operation through partners with cattle producers around us. And it definitely works. I see a scenario where livestock becomes a part of our operation to really drive this home, because I think we can all agree this is almost the ultimate tool. And yeah, so moving on to the next slide here, just about done. Kind of to wrap up, minimal disturbance. I wanted to throw a picture in here of our soil under a cover crop from last year. So you see a couple earthworms in there burrowing around the roots of this cover crop species. And this is something I didn't see in our farm up to 5 years ago. I couldn't even get my hands in the soil to dig enough to see earthworms like this. And this wasn't just freshly after rain. It just shows how there's still moist soil underneath there because the soil's covered, it's got a diversity of roots, and it's happy and it's alive. And seeing those earthworms really starts to get a guy excited. And I know you hear that a lot from people in the soil health world, but it really is true. So yeah, to wrap things up on the next slide, moving ahead for us, we just really want to try and continue to lower our fertility costs, playing around with biofertilizers, carbon inputs, and just spending money on plants, because plants growing is the ultimate tool. And I'd rather spend money on seed than on fertilizer, and just really trying to figure that all out, play around with perennial forages and grains. And then again, like I already kind of mentioned, that livestock integration piece is something that we're taking very seriously moving forward to really make this system well-rounded and drive all these principles home. So yeah, that's my whirlwind journey from our farm over the last 10 years. I hope you guys saw some value in going through our journey, and I hope it makes you think about how you can make some changes on your own farm.